So, US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has been ordered by the Democrats to turn over documents relating to the Trump administration dealings with Ukraine this week, accusing others of what they've done. It's just not funny. The examples are increasing by the day. We had someone accusing someone of being a pedophile or being in part of a child porn software ring this week, and yet that person has a pedophile on her friends list. You can't make this stuff up. Anyway, in the letter, the heads of the three houses committees subpoenaed Mr. Pompeo to produce the documents within a week. And this is the latest move in what is becoming a rapidly escalating load of nonsense and impeachment proceedings against Mr. Trump. Now, he has been allegedly scrutinised for pressuring the Ukraine president to investigate Democrat rival Joe Biden. He's also asked the Chinese one as well, because there's fun and games over there. And in a separate development, last Friday, the US Special Envoy for Ukraine negotiations, Kurt Volker, resigned. And Mr. Trump has alleged that Mr. Biden pressed for the sacking of the Ukraine prosecutor Viktor Shokin in 2016 to protect a business that has employed his son, Hunter Biden. He's made millions in Ukraine, courtesy of Langley Clowns. And Mr. Biden called for the sacking of Mr. Shokin, but so did a number of other Western officials, all linked, who saw him as a hindrance to anti-corruption investigations. So Mr. Volker, the State Department's special envoy for Ukraine, who got caught in the middle of the pressure campaign by Trump and his lawyer, Mr. Giuliani, to find damaging information about Democrats, abruptly resigned on Friday. And he told the Secretary of State Mike Pompeo he was stepping down, offered no public explanation, but a person informed about his decision said he concluded that it was impossible to be effective in his assignment given the developments of recent days. Now, Mr. Volker was not only involved in the State Department, he was a former ambassador to NATO, who served in a part-time unpaid position of special envoy to help Ukraine. I wouldn't say it was help, not their type of help anyway. And Ukraine resolved its armed confrontation with Russian-sponsored separatists, and was among the government officials who found themselves in an awkward position because of the search for dirt on Democrats. And so he went. Good news story, even though it's sad in some ways. Finally, there's a number of these right around the world that have been fixed and corrected. Nearly 500 men and boys have been rescued from a building in the northern city of Kaduna, where the detainees were allegedly sexually abused and tortured, according to Nigerian police. Children as young as 5 were amongst those in chains at was thought to be an Islamic school. Now, the Kaduna police chief Ali Yanga told the BBC the building was raided after a tip-off about suspicious activity, and he described it as a house of torture and a place of human slavery. 8 suspects, most of them teachers, were arrested, and the police chief said the detainees, some with injuries and starved of food, were overjoyed to be freed. The detainees then told police that they'd been tortured, sexually abused, starved and prevented from leaving, in some cases for several years. Thankfully, that's now all over for those people. Also in Africa, and this pleases me no end, the African people are fighting back. Why? Because they've decided that the World Horror Organization, better known as World Health, which again is a misnomer, the vaccination storage facility at Ayegbaju Market in Osogbo of Osun State was on Saturday razed by fire. This is in Nigeria as well. And according to Nigeria's Security and Civil Defence Corps official, Ajines Alaid, attached to the facility, the fire started from a generator close to the World Health Organization facility. Now, the fire started around 12:13, and one of the generators, it is said, but from what I gather, it was done on purpose, that powers the building where the vaccines were stored. The Osun World Health Organization immunization officer and state cold vaccine coordinator, where did he come up with these names? Mrs. Adebola told Nigerian agency that the cold vaccine storage office was not affected by the fire, but the dry vaccine outlet was razed. She said a 60 kV generator, a 12 kV generator, and two other 18 generators were also affected, and 2 photocopying machines and 2 motorcycles were destroyed. But the key part of it is 162,000 of 0.05 ml needles and syringes were destroyed, 634,000 of half millimetre needles and syringes destroyed, 10,500 of 5 milliliter needles destroyed, and 4,000 2 milliliter needles and syringes were destroyed, plus 8,654 pieces of immunisation safety boxes were also destroyed. I like that type of thing. I'm sorry, these people are sick, and the more the African people understand what they're doing, the less of them is going to get killed. You know, it's shows like mine and Randy's and Alan's and many others who have highlighted this vaccine issue, and this is why they're pushing in the UK now to make it compulsory. The Health Secretary this week said that he's looking very seriously, this is in the UK, at making vaccinations compulsory for all children going to school in England. Simple solution: remove them. Give the Education Department a £1 billion indemnity form, that they're liable if your child gets sick. See if they sign it. If they don't sign it, if they can't sign it and declare it safe, then you have a right not to give it. It's that simple. Some experts have suggested it may be necessary to address falling rates of immunisation, good to hear, and a surge in diseases which is faked, like measles. Matt Hancock told an event at the Tory conference that he had taken legal advice this week on how to go about it. And unvaccinated children were putting other children at risk. I love the way he put that. The vaccinated children have the virus in them and they're safe, but the ones with no virus in them are not. You make sense of that? You know. And the uptake of MMR vaccine in particular has been declining in many countries, and the reason is not clear. I'll tell you what's clear is people think it's all BS, that's why. And too many people's kids have suffered because of it. Rates dipped in the 1990s following publication of a report linking MMR to autism. It also causes deafness in the ear close to where the vaccine was given. Happened to my ex-wife. and that was the first part of there's two parts. That was just the first part. We didn't have the second. But partially recovered after that research was discredited and disproved, probably by Snopes, CIA, or Facebook fact checker. Yeah, they need to check their own facts. However, the volume of anti-vaccine sentiment on social media has been swelling, and in March the head of the NHS in England warned vaccination deniers were gaining traction online, which is why YouTube and Go Ogle and others are closing all those sites down. So it's up to us then to give word of mouth. You saw what happened in the first piece tonight. Make people aware. It's their choice then. Another good piece of news, this time in Indonesia. The Indonesian Parliament has unanimously agreed to raise the legal minimum age at which girls can marry to 19 last week. And the move comes after decades of campaigning and will help to advance gender equality and close legal loopholes that have enabled issue of child marriage to remain pervasive in the country. Finally, after 45 years of the existing marriage law, this is present for Indonesian children. Women's Empowerment and Child Protection Minister Yohana Yambisi said in a statement this week. Though the legal marriage age for both men and women is officially 21, numerous loopholes have allowed girls as young as 16 and lower, and men as young as 19 to marry with parental consent. I don't think it's anything near those ages. Some in those type of countries, they're marrying them at 9 and 12. And the law also allowed girls of any age to be married off with permission from local authorities and religious courts. Indonesia has the 8th highest number of child brides in the world, with 14% of girls married before 18 and more than 3 million before 15. According to UNICEF. Well, what are they doing? They're supposed to be protecting children. What are they doing? And the minister pointed out that child marriage in the country had been linked to higher rates of maternal and infant deaths as well as child labour. Yes, because they're too young is why. Republican Representative Chris Collins of New York, accused of insider trading, has resigned. A spokesman for House Speaker and alcoholic Nancy Pelosi confirmed on Monday. We are in receipt of a letter of resignation and it will be laid down to the House floor this week pro forma, and resignation will be effective. Now, Mr. Collins, who's from upstate New York, represented the swathe of suburbs between Buffalo and Rochester and was the first US congressman to endorse President Trump's candidacy, and he also remained a staunch Trump ally. Last September, after Collins and another GOP congressman faced federal charges, Trump tweeted 2 long-running Obama-era investigations of 2 very popular Republican congressmen were brought to a well-publicised charge just ahead of the midterms by Jeff Sessions. And he went on to criticise Mr. Sessions, who has since been resigned, spelled F-I-R-E-D. Spain next. I find this mind-boggling after all this time. But this is the way bureaucracy works. And all part of the labels and tick boxes culture. But there was a deadline for Jewish people living outside of Spain to request Spanish nationality has now expired, with 127,000 applications, most of them from Latin America. Jews living in Mexico topped the list with about 20,000 requests, followed by Jews in Venezuela and also Colombia. Back in 2015, Spain passed a law to atone for the medieval expulsion of the Sephardi Jews from the country in the 15th century. Spain's Catholic monarchs, having defeated the Muslim Moors, forced Jews to convert or leave, and applicants have had to prove a family connection with medieval Spain, and in many cases that proved difficult, which they will know ahead of time. In addition, they had to get their Sephardi origin certified by a solicitor in Spain, and Spanish Jews gave the Hebrew name Separad to the Iberian Peninsula, so descendants of Jews from Spain and Portugal who still describe themselves as Sephardi Jews. Well, 127,000 are now barred. Unbelievable. This could get interesting. Leaked audio comments this week from Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg, spelled with a silent F, reportedly included him saying that the tech company would likely have no choice but to sue the US government to stave off being broken up if Elizabeth Warren becomes president. He said, "You have someone like Elizabeth Warren thinks that the right answer is to break up the companies. I mean, if she gets elected president, then I would bet that we will have a legal challenge, and I would bet that we would win the legal challenge." It was quoted in saying in 2 Q&A sessions with Facebook employees recently. Well, didn't Trump mention over breaking them up? So why is he not suing it now? This next piece boggles my mind and makes me want to get my MeWe GIF out again. It's just staggering. Bernie Sanders, he'd be better selling chicken. And kickstarts the third quarter fundraising announcement. It announced the Vermont Senators campaign on Tuesday announced that they'd raised a whopping $25.3 million in the last 3 months. The largest quarter for any Democratic candidate this year, and a number that on its own eclipses Elizabeth Warren's entire first and second quarters total. 25 million in 3 months for a pointless politician. I mean, what's wrong with people in this country? There's plenty of ways and places to send $8.5 million a month than on a 79-year-old politician who's never ever going to win. It's madness. $8.5 million a month for people who talk shit and deliver nothing. Reports out this week, and not a surprise. And we did warn of it, but warnings seem to go unhindered to date anyway, although there has been a slight change. But the American manufacturers are sliding deeper into recession. A closely watched gauge of factory activity released this week registered its weakest reading in more than 10 years. And the monthly survey for the Institute for Supply Management, an association of purchasing managers, showed that the sector, which accounts for roughly 12% of US gross domestic product in September, shrank to its lowest level since June 2009. Also, there came out manufacturers are also adding fewer jobs and shedding quite a lot. I was going to put this in the sub-intel as a hint, but it's left in the news. This is the last one before we go into some Q&A. But police in Germany have executed a high-tech raid. Listen closely. On a data processing centre installed in an ex-NATO bunker, which allegedly hosted dark web sites to deal drugs and child abuse imagery. Authorities reportedly seized $41 million worth of funds seemingly linked to these markets and over 200 servers which were running throughout the closely guarded facility, and 7 people have been arrested, and the main suspect in the long-running investigation is a 59-year-old Dutchman who police believe bought the former military bunker in Traben-Trarbach, which is in western Germany. And after he acquired the bunker from NATO, or did he? The man allegedly transformed it into a large and heavily secured data processing centre in order to make it available to clients, according to the investigations, exclusively for illegal purposes. Now, the regional criminal police chief Johannes Kunz noted the man is believed to have had links to organised crime. Well, he would. It was a NATO bunker. They are organised crime. And he also appeared to spend most of his time in the area despite being registered as a resident in Singapore. Connecting dots here. And authorities are investigating a total of 13 people aged 20 to 59, including 3 Germans and 7 Dutch citizens. Those arrested are suspected of being members of a criminal organisation, as well as accessories to hundreds of thousands of offences involving forged documents, counterfeit money, drugs, and the distribution of child abuse imagery. And the bunker was set up as a bulletproof holster in a bid to conceal illicit activities, and it's thought to have hosted platforms including drug dealing site Cannabis Road, Wall Street Market, and Orange Chemicals. Such dark web marketplaces are often run and fueled by cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin. That's Mr. Brower stated, and it said it appeared that a 2016 botnet attack on Deutsche Telekom, which affected about 1 million customers' routers, came from that bunker. Did you connect the dots in there? I hope you did.